The stars outside the window of the Trazari warship Yularen's Glory looked calm, peaceful even. But inside the ship, the atmosphere was tense. Commander Vektal stood in the main command room, arms behind his back, staring at the large screen in front of him. The screen showed footage from Earth, a planet full of water, forests, cities, and strange creatures called humans. Humans had only joined the galactic stage a few centuries ago. Many alien races still thought of them as weak, undeveloped, or just lucky. The Trazari Empire, proud and ancient, had conquered dozens of planets. Now, some members of the High Council believed it was time to bring Earth under their control. Vektal wasn't so sure. "You're watching those videos again, Commander?" said a younger officer, stepping forward. His name was Drelk, eager and sharp, recently promoted to join the command team. Vektal didn't answer right away. He was watching a video of a human soldier carrying his wounded friend during a battle. There was smoke, fire, and chaos around them, but the soldier didn't stop. He kept moving forward, even after he was shot in the leg. Finally, Vektal spoke. "They are not what they seem, Drelk. Humans are complicated." Drelk laughed. "With respect, Commander, they're just mammals. Small, noisy, emotional. Their technology is behind ours. Their armies are undisciplined. Why fear them?" Vektal turned to face the young officer. "I don't fear them, but I respect them, and I've learned never to underestimate a species that survives its own chaos." Drelk tilted his head. "You speak like you admire them." "I observe them," Vektal said simply. "And I think we need to know more before we make any decision." At that moment, another officer walked in with a report. "The Council has called for a vote. They want your recommendation, Commander. Do we proceed with plans to subdue Earth?" Vektal nodded slowly. "Tell the Council I will prepare a full report. But first, I need to see them up close. I want to observe humans directly on one of their frontier colonies." Drelk raised an eyebrow. "You want to go to a human base?" "Yes," Vektal replied. "There's one on the edge of Sector 9, a small outpost. They allow alien visitors. Now, we will request a diplomatic exchange. I want to know how they train, how they live, how they fight." Drelk still looked doubtful. "You think there's something special about them?" Vektal's voice dropped lower. "I once saw a human ship fight off 10 pirate cruisers. Their engines were failing, they had no reinforcements, and their weapons were overheating. They still won." Drelk blinked. "How?" "They didn't fight to win. They fought not to lose. There's a difference." 2 days later, Yularen's Glory sent a request to visit Earth's outpost on the planet Terrius 4. The humans responded within hours. Permission granted. Commander Vektal led a small group of Trazari officers, including Drelk, down to the planet's surface. The human base wasn't large, just a few buildings, a landing pad, and a training field. But it was alive with activity. Soldiers ran drills, engineers repaired machines, robots carried crates, and laughter echoed from the dining hall. They were greeted by Commander Riley Graves, the base leader. He was human, tall, strong, with graying hair and calm eyes. He smiled as he stepped forward and extended a hand. "Welcome to Terrius 4. I'm Commander Graves. You must be Vektal." Vektal looked at the hand for a moment, then shook it carefully. "Commander, thank you for the welcome." Graves grinned. "We don't get many Trazari visitors. Come on, let me show you around." As they walked through the base, Drelk whispered to Vektal. "They're so relaxed. This doesn't look like a military station." Vektal replied softly. "Watch. Don't speak too soon." Graves gave them a full tour. He showed them the barracks, the weapon room, the tech labs, and the mess hall. Everywhere they went, humans greeted them with smiles, nods, or curious looks. Some were young, some older. Many looked tired but cheerful. Later that day, Graves invited them to watch a training exercise. "It's just a mock battle," he explained. "Our soldiers are running through a capture-the-flag scenario. Nothing too serious." The aliens sat in a viewing room above the field. The humans began their drill. It was chaotic. Some soldiers tripped. Others miscommunicated. One unit walked straight into a trap. Drelk chuckled, but then something strange happened. The humans adapted. The unit that was trapped signaled a nearby team. Together, they built a quick distraction and escaped. Another group used a broken transport vehicle to block the path of the enemy. One soldier climbed a wall with his bare hands to get behind the opposing team. Slowly, they turned the battle. By the end, the team that lost the flag in the beginning ended up winning. Vektal watched closely, his eyes focused. "They don't fight perfectly," he murmured, "but they fight smart." Drelk frowned. "It looked like luck." "No," Vektal said. "It looked like creativity." That night, Vektal walked alone outside the human base. He found a quiet corner where a small stone wall stood. On it were pictures, names, and short notes written in many languages. Flowers and small tokens were placed nearby. Graves found him standing there. "Memorial wall," the human commander said. "Soldiers who died here or on nearby missions. We don't forget them." Vektal nodded slowly. "Your people care deeply for each other." Graves looked at the wall. "We're not the strongest, not the fastest, but we don't leave our people behind, and we don't quit." Vektal turned to him. "Why do you fight, Commander?" Graves looked up at the stars. "Sometimes because we have to. Sometimes because we must protect something, but never for power. We fight so others don't have to." That night, in his quarters, Vektal opened his private log. He began to type. "Reasons we never fight the humans." Entry 1. They do not fight to conquer. They fight to protect. And that makes them dangerous in ways our kind never considered. He looked out the window at the human base, still glowing with lights, music, and life, and felt something unfamiliar. Respect, not for their weapons, not for their ships, but for their hearts. The humans were different, and Vektal had only just begun to understand why. The next morning on Tarius 4 began with the sharp sound of alarms. But it wasn't an attack. It was just the base's daily routine alarm, waking soldiers for training and duties. Commander Vektal stood near the window of the guest room the humans had provided. He watched the humans below move quickly, some jogging to the training fields, others heading to the control tower. He noticed something strange. They were tired, yet smiling. Some were joking with each other. It was not how Trazari soldiers behaved. Trazari warriors were always silent and serious. Drelk entered the room, holding a small tablet. "Commander, today we've been invited to observe their full combat training. They call it a stress simulation." Vektal turned toward him. "Accept it. We will observe everything." Later, Vektal, Drelk, and the Trazari team gathered near the training grounds. Commander Graves met them with his usual calm and friendly manner. "Today's drill is tougher than yesterday. Simulated battlefield with timed missions, traps, weather effects, and pressure situations. We run this once a week." Drelk looked at the human soldiers. "They don't look ready," Graves chuckled. "That's what the simulation is for, to train them to be ready even when they're not." The whistle blew. The simulation began. It was chaos again. Soldiers ran through muddy fields. Explosions, smoke, and loud sirens filled the air. Rain. Machines poured water on them. The terrain changed under their feet. Artificial enemies appeared, and some soldiers were killed in the simulation. Drelk frowned. "They're slow, disorganized." But Vektal saw something different. Every time a soldier fell, another rushed to help. If one team failed, the other adapted. They used broken equipment as tools. One group even made a stretcher from wires and metal scraps to carry a teammate. Graves stood beside them. They're not perfect, but they don't give up, and they think with their hearts and minds. That's how we survive. After an hour, the simulation ended. The soldiers were muddy, wet, and tired, but they were smiling, clapping each other on the back. Some even danced jokingly in the rain. Drelk whispered, "Strange creatures. They celebrate failure." Vektal replied, "They celebrate learning." That evening, Commander Graves invited Vektal and his team to a meal in the base's dining hall. The room was loud, full of laughter, talking, and clinking metal trays. The food was simple: grains, protein blocks, fruits, but the humans seemed to enjoy it. Graves sat with Vektal at a corner table. "You've been watching us closely, Commander. What do you think so far?" Vektal sipped a warm drink called coffee and answered, "I think your people are different from what our council believes." Graves leaned forward. "Different? How?" Vektal thought for a moment. "You lack the physical strength of some species. You lack advanced tech in some areas. Yet your soldiers are full of purpose." Graves nodded. "That's true. We fight not because we want war, but because we want peace. We fight when we must. But when we do, we give everything." Vektal was quiet. Then he asked, "Tell me, Commander, what makes humans keep going even when everything is lost?" Graves smiled sadly. "We remember what we're fighting for: home, family, each other." At the next table, a young human soldier raised a toast. "To those who didn't come back, and to those who make sure we do." Everyone clapped. A few wiped their eyes. Vektal stared at them. This was not the behavior of a weak species. This was something deeper, something even the Trazari, with all their power, might never understand. That night, back in his quarters, Vektal wrote in his private log again. Entry 2. Humans do not fight because they are fearless. They fight because they are afraid of losing what they love. This makes them stronger than fear itself. The next day brought a surprise. A distress signal reached the human base. A civilian convoy, unarmed transport ships, was under attack by pirates near the outer rings of the planet. These pirates were cyber raiders, part machine, part alien, and completely merciless. Commander Graves reacted immediately. "Prep the intercept team. We move in 5 minutes." One of the officers turned to him. "Sir, our ships are out for repairs. Only the ground patrol team is available." Graves looked to Vektal. "Commander, I know this is not your fight, but will you stand with us?" Drelk looked shocked. "We are not trained for human missions. This is not our duty." Vektal, however, saw the faces of the soldiers, ready, calm, determined, and he made a decision. "We will assist," he said. "Send us the coordinates." They boarded small shuttles and rushed toward the distress site. The scene was terrible. Pirate ships surrounded the convoy. Fires burned in space. Civilian passengers were trapped, afraid, sending out calls for help. The human soldiers didn't wait. They moved quickly using small ships and jetpacks. They boarded one of the pirate ships, fighting to take control. The pirates were fierce, fast, and heavily armed. Some human soldiers were injured, but others carried them back. No one was left behind. Vektal and his team supported from above, using their advanced targeting systems to disable pirate engines. Drelk, now fully focused, guided fire patterns with precision. In the middle of the fight, a human medic was seen running through enemy fire to help a wounded crew member. She reached him, gave first aid, and tried to carry him back, but she was hit. A Trazari warrior rushed in to pull her to safety. It was Drelk. Later, the pirates retreated. Though convoy was saved, cheers rose on the human channel, even though lives had been lost. Back at the base, the humans held a short ceremony. They honored those who died and thanked those who fought. Vectal stood beside graves as the names of the fallen were read. Aloud. You didn't have to help, Graves said softly. Vectal nodded. But we did. And I now understand why you fight. That night, Vectal's log received a new entry. Entry 3. Humans run into danger not for glory, but to pull others from it. They do not fight alone. They do not abandon. Their courage is not in strength. It is in their hearts. The next morning, as the Trazari team prepared to leave, Drelk approached Vectal. I didn't understand before, Drelk said. But now I see they're not strong because they win. They're strong because they won't quit. Vectal smiled. That is why we must be careful. That is why we must remember this moment. We cannot measure them by numbers. We must measure them by spirit. Drelk nodded. And now I agree with you, Commander. I know why. We never fight the humans. Vectal looked out at the rising sun over the human base, where laughter, music, and life had returned. Because in every battle, even if we win, he said quietly, we will lose something we do not understand. And with that, they boarded their ship, leaving behind a memory that would one day become a lesson to all. Back aboard the warship Yularin's Glory, Commander Vectal stood silently in front of a large screen, deep in thought. The stars moved slowly across the window behind him, but his focus was still on the humans. The experience at the outpost, Ontarius IV, had changed something in him. He had seen bravery, kindness, teamwork, and something much deeper. The humans weren't fearless. They were not the strongest. But when the moment called for courage, they always answered. And they always fought for something bigger than themselves. Drelk entered the command room holding a report. Commander, the High Council is asking for your official recommendation. They are ready to begin the Earth invasion plan. They just need your final words. Vectal didn't speak for a moment. Then he turned. They must wait. Drelk was surprised. But the Council thinks humans will surrender quickly. We have more ships, more weapons, greater numbers. Vectal slowly walked to the screen and tapped a button. Footage appeared. It showed the pirate attack, human soldiers running into fire, saving civilians, helping one another, even when wounded. In one clip, a young female medic was smiling, even though her leg was badly hurt. This, Vectal said, pointing to the screen, is what our council doesn't understand. They look at numbers. I see something different. I see why we should not fight them. But if we do not act now, Drelk said carefully, we may lose the chance to defeat them before they grow stronger. Vectal nodded. Yes, they are growing. Fast, but not just in technology, in spirit, in connection. They are not perfect, but they are united in strange ways. Drelk lowered his eyes. What will you do, Commander? I will go to the High Council myself, Vectal replied, and I will speak to them, not with fear, but with truth. The Trazari capital on the planet Volthar was made of tall towers, silver bridges, and glowing skies. The High Council chamber was at the very top of the tallest tower. It was here that war was decided. Vectal stood before 12 council members. All were powerful leaders. All had led battles, invasions, and victories across the galaxy. One of them, Elder Marcon, looked at Vectal with sharp eyes. Commander, you were sent to study the humans. Have you brought your recommendation? Yes, Elder, Vectal replied calmly, and my recommendation is simple. We do not attack Earth. The room became quiet. Shocked faces turned toward one another. Another council member leaned forward. You believe they are too strong to fight? No, Vectal said. I believe they are too dangerous to defeat. Explain, Marcon demanded. Vectal began to speak clearly, firmly. He showed them videos, gave reports, and shared his logs. They are not stronger in muscle, not sharper in weaponry, but they are willing to sacrifice everything for one another. They fight for home, for love, for each other. Even when they lose, they rise again. That is a strength we do not possess. One member scoffed. That sounds like emotion. Weakness. Vektal shook his head. It is not weakness. It is what gives them power. They do not follow orders like machines. They follow meaning. That is harder to break. Drelk, sitting quietly at the side, suddenly stood up. I saw it too. Ontarius 4. They are different. They can smile while bleeding. They joke during pain. One soldier even told me he missed his mother during a battle, and then he laughed, wiped his tears, and kept fighting. The council remained silent. Vektal then played one last video. It showed a human school where children were learning about space, teamwork, and kindness. The teacher said, "We do not fight to destroy. We fight to protect. That is the human way." Marcon stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he said, "So you are telling us they may not win every battle, but they will never truly lose?" Vektal nodded. Exactly. And the more we hurt them, the more united they become. We would create not an enemy, but a storm. The council members looked at one another. Then Marcon said, "We will reconsider the invasion. Your report will be stored in our records." Vektal bowed. "Thank you, elders, for listening." Months passed. Vektal returned to his post on Yularen's glory, but his duties had changed. He was no longer preparing for war. He was now working on building peaceful channels with Earth and other human colonies. To his surprise, the humans welcomed the change. Commander Graves sent messages often. Some included small jokes. Others included news of human culture, music, stories, history. Vektal shared those with his crew. At first, some laughed at the strange human habits, dancing at weddings, crying during movies, singing in the rain. But slowly, curiosity turned to interest. The humans were full of life. One day, a special message arrived from Earth. It was an invitation. A global event was being held, a unity festival, to celebrate peaceful relations between species. Humans had invited Trazari leaders to attend. Vektal decided to go. Earth was unlike any planet Vektal had seen. Blue oceans, green forests, colorful cities, and a sky filled with light. The Unity Festival was held in a place called Geneva. Thousands of people, aliens and humans alike, gathered to celebrate peace. Vektal walked through crowds of laughing children, smiling families, and music. He saw humans holding hands with aliens, sharing food, dancing together. Commander Graves met him at the main stage. "Glad you came, old friend." Vektal smiled. "This is more powerful than any fleet I've seen." Graves laughed. "We believe peace takes more courage than war." Later, as speeches were made and songs played, Vektal stood on stage and shared his thoughts. He said, "I was once sent to study humans as a possible threat. But what I found was something far greater, a species that loves, learns, and heals faster than any I've known. This is why we never fight the humans, because we would not only lose a battle, we would lose the chance to learn from them." The crowd stood in silence. Then, one by one, they began to clap. Slowly at first, then louder. A standing ovation. Vektal looked around, at smiling humans, at hopeful Trazari, at other species who had once feared war, now dancing in peace. In that moment, he knew the truth. It was not weapons that made humanity powerful. It was their heart. The celebration on Earth had ended, but its memory stayed in the hearts of many. Commander Vektal returned to his ship, Yularen's glory, with a quiet mind and a heavy heart. He had just witnessed something beautiful. Unity, hope, peace, shared between humans and many other species. And yet, not everyone was happy about it. A secret message waited for him in his private quarters. It came from Elder Marcon himself. Commander Vectal, your peace efforts have reached far, but there are voices rising again. Some among the High Council believe humans are becoming too powerful. Some fear their influence. They whisper of control and of quiet conquest. You must investigate. Are the humans truly seeking peace or preparing for something else? Vectal frowned. The question troubled him, not because he believed the humans were dangerous, but because he knew how fear could twist the truth. Still, he had a duty to perform. He turned to Drelk, now a trusted officer by his side. We must return to Earth, quietly. This time, not as guests. We observe, we listen, and we learn what the humans truly plan. Drelk nodded. Yes, Commander, but do you believe they've changed? Vectal's eyes darkened. No. I believe they were always like this. It's we who are finally starting to see them clearly. The ship landed on a distant human colony far from Earth called Haven 7. It was peaceful, small, and mostly used for training new officers. It was the perfect place to learn the truth without drawing too much attention. Vectal and Drelk walked among humans dressed in casual uniforms, laughing and working together. In the sunlight, a young human soldier greeted them with a friendly wave. Welcome. Didn't expect visitors today. We're just observing, Vectal replied. We've come to understand more about human training and leadership. The soldier smiled. Well, you've come to the right place. You'll find we train hard, but live kindly. That evening, the two Trazari visitors sat in a quiet hall where a group of humans were having a discussion. It was a class of sorts, but not about weapons or tactics. They were talking about empathy. We don't just train to shoot or fly. Ships, said the human instructor, a woman named Captain Rivera. We learn how to protect others without becoming cruel ourselves. Compassion is not weakness. It is the reason we fight only when needed. Drelk leaned toward Vectal. This is strange. Trazari warriors are taught never to speak of feelings. Vectal replied, and yet these humans win not because they hide their hearts, but because they use them. They continued to listen. One cadet asked, what if we face a race stronger than us? Faster? With more ships? Rivera answered, then we fight smarter, not with fear, but with hope. And if we must fall, we fall helping someone else stand. The room was silent. So were the Trazari. The next day brought an unexpected turn. An emergency signal flashed through Haven 7's command center. A nearby science outpost on the planet's northern side had lost contact. Strong magnetic storms had damaged their systems. A rescue team was needed. Before Vectal could speak, Captain Rivera turned to her team. Prep the shuttle. We move in 10. Vectal stepped forward. Let us assist. Rivera looked at him for a moment, then nodded. Good to have you with us. The journey to the northern outpost was rough. Windstorms shook the shuttle. Static covered their comms, but they made it through. The outpost was in bad shape, walls broken, power down. Inside, humans and aliens lay trapped under equipment and debris. The rescue team moved fast. Humans lifted metal beams with bare hands. They worked together without shouting, without blame, just action, kindness, purpose. Vectal helped pull. A young engineer out from under a pile of panels. She was shaking but smiling. You're not human, she said weakly. No, Vectal replied. But I came because I knew you needed help. She squeezed his hand. Thank you. Drelk and a human officer worked side by side to restart the outpost's emergency lights. After an hour, they finally blinked on. As the rescued crew sat in warm blankets and shared food, Vectal looked around. Tired eyes, dirty hands, smiles on every face. And then he understood something deeper than before. Humans didn't just fight for survival. They built communities. They lifted each other up, even strangers. When they returned to Haven 7, Captain, Rivera called for a small gathering. "I want to thank our guests," she said, looking at Vektal and Drelk. "You didn't have to help us, but you did. And that means more to us than words can say." One young cadet stood up. "Before today, I didn't know much about the Trazari, but now I see we're not so different." Vektal stood. He looked around the room of human soldiers. "And future leaders. I came here because my leaders feared you. They feared your strength, your growth, your fire. But what I saw today proves that your true strength is not in weapons or ships, but in your ability to care." The room was silent. Drelk stepped beside him. "I once thought humans were clumsy, emotional, and chaotic. Now I know you are the reason peace still has a chance in this galaxy." Back on Yularen's glory, Vektal wrote one more entry in his private log. Entry 4. They do not conquer with blades. They conquer with bonds. They are builders, not destroyers. And in the heart of storms, they are the ones holding others upright. He sent the report to Elder Marcon with a message. "You asked if they prepare for something greater. They do. Not war, but unity. Do not fear the humans. Learn from them." And for the first time in many cycles, Vektal felt peace, not from safety, but from understanding. Years had passed since Commander Vektal first stepped on human soil. Much had changed. The Trazari Empire no longer planned to invade Earth. The High Council had voted, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. After reading Vektal's reports and watching the shared missions unfold, they finally understood something rare and powerful. The humans were not to be fought. They were to be respected. On many planets now, human and Trazari ships worked together. Colonies were built side by side. Trade flowed smoothly. Schools on both sides began teaching about each other's cultures. Even children on distant moons had heard the saying, "You may outfight them, but you will never outlast them." That line came from Vektal himself. Now older, he lived peacefully at the edge of a new training academy, a joint project between Trazari and human commanders. It was called the Unity Base, and it stood on a neutral planet, built with Earth's bright design and Trazari's strong structure. One morning, a young alien cadet knocked on Vektal's door. Her name was Kira, a first-year trainee. "Commander," she said softly, "our teacher told us you were the first to meet the humans and come back with respect." Vektal smiled. "Yes, that is true." Kira looked curious. "May I ask you something?" "Of course," he replied. She hesitated. "Why didn't we fight the humans? We were stronger back then. We had more ships, more weapons. We had plans, but we stopped. Why?" Vektal stood slowly and looked out the window. The training field was filled with young recruits, both human and alien, running drills together, laughing, helping one another. He spoke gently but clearly. "Sit down, young one. I will tell you the full story." She sat, her eyes wide, listening carefully. "It started many cycles ago," Vektal began. "Our empire believed that humans were weak. They had arrived late to the stars. They were loud, emotional, and unpredictable. The High Council thought Earth would be an easy conquest." Kira nodded. "That's what the old history books say." "Yes," he said, "but books can be wrong. I was sent to study them before any war began. I thought it would be simple, but what I found on Earth changed everything." He paused, remembering the first human outpost he had visited. The smell of food, the sound of laughter, the fearless commander named Graves. "I saw their soldiers. They were not perfect. They made mistakes. They fell down. But they always got back up, and they never left anyone behind. Kira asked, "But we Trazari are disciplined. We do not fall. Doesn't that make us better?" Vectal looked her in the eyes. "No, it makes us different, but not better. You see, the humans had something else. Something even our best warriors did not have. They had heart." "Heart?" Kira repeated. "Yes, the humans fight with it. They protect the weak. They risk their lives for strangers. They cry for the fallen, and they still smile after pain." Vectal continued. "I saw a young human medic run into fire to save someone she barely knew. I saw soldiers who had no energy left still carry their wounded friends. I saw kindness in the middle of chaos and laughter after loss." Kira's voice dropped. "So, it wasn't fear that stopped us from fighting them?" "No," he said. "It was respect, deep, real respect. We saw what they were made of, and we understood. If we fought them, we might win battles, but we would lose something far more important." "Like what?" she asked. Vectal stood and walked to a nearby shelf. He picked up a small photo. It showed a group of soldiers, Trazari and humans, smiling together after a mission. Commander Graves stood beside him, arms around two cadets, one from each species. He handed the photo to Kira. "We would lose this," he said softly. "The chance to build something together, the chance to learn, the chance to grow." Kira looked at the photo for a long time. "And now we train together." "Yes," Vectal said proudly, "because one day you will be the leaders. You will carry the peace forward. And peace, Kira, is harder than war." Later that week, Vectal stood in front of the entire academy. It was Unity Day, a celebration that happened every year to honor the moment when the Trazari Empire chose peace over war. Young soldiers, officers, and teachers gathered in the main hall. Flags from many planets waved together. Music played, softly. Humans and aliens sat side by side, eating, talking, and laughing. Vectal stepped forward. He looked over the crowd. The future. And then he spoke. "Long ago, I was sent to decide if we should fight the humans. I watched their ways. I studied their battles. I saw their pain and their strength." He paused, letting the silence speak. "We chose not to fight them. Not because we feared them, not because we couldn't win, but because they taught us something no enemy ever had." He pointed to the crowd. "They taught us that the strongest shield is not metal, it is friendship, that the sharpest weapon is not a laser, it is unity, and that victory is not in who falls, but in who lifts others up." Applause began to rise, soft, then louder, not out of duty, but out of truth. Vectal raised his hand. "Let this academy be the proof. Let this generation carry the story. When others ask, why did we never fight the humans?" He smiled. "You will answer with pride, because they reminded us of who we could be." After the ceremony, as the stars lit up the sky, Kira stood by herself near the field, watching cadets fly small practice drones. Drelk, now a senior officer and teacher at the academy, walked up beside her. "You listened well," he said. Kira nodded. "Commander Vectal was right. They're not strong because they win. They win because they never stop caring." Drelk smiled. "Yes, and now it is our job to care as well." As they watched a group of human and Trazari cadets race drones together, laughing and shouting encouragement, Drelk spoke one final truth. "This is why we never fought the humans. Because they didn't want to rule the galaxy. They wanted to share it." And in the heart of that quiet night, with stars above and hope below, the legacy of peace lived on.